Look, look, in those days, everybody in the house worked. Everybody. The baby can barely hold the bottle. Well, the baby's job is to hold the bottle. Okay? And if they can barely do it, one day they gonna do it. Those of you who are new here, I have two Frenchies. We got Lulu, the older one, who snores a lot. I'm so sorry. He don't even have to be sleeping. He snores. I'm so sorry. Then we got the baby. We have him on trazodone. He's out of control. I'm so sorry. So if you hear any noises in the background, please understand I am not trying to make a mockery of this book, because this book is very important. It's just that my Frenchies have no respect. One gray, cold Mississippi Delta day in 1920. 5-year-old Roebuck Staples peered out his window and saw a mule-driven wagon slowly approach his family home to take his mother away. After giving birth to, cooking for, and looking after 14 children, all the while toiling in the cotton fields, Florence Staples' heart had finally given out. And I tell you, heart disease is something vicious in black women. And for the new people here, I just randomly give commentary, okay? Just so you know, the number one killer of women is not breast cancer. It's heart disease. Born December 28th, 1914 in Winona, Mississippi, Roebuck was the seventh son of Warren and Florence Staples. When he arrived, his mother broke out in a fever and was bedridden, postponing the wedding of one of Roebuck's older sisters, Rosie. His 13th sibling, Flora, was born 2 years later. As soon as the baby learned to walk, she and Roebuck became playmates, commanding a huge front yard on which they'd make mud pies. Their bubble of not a care in the world security burst when Florence died. 2 years later, Roebuck lost his beloved Flora. So, believe it or not, for those young people that are here, your parents made you do chores, okay? That is how you earned your keep. You weren't allowed to just go upstairs and play PlayStation and close your room and listen to music and things like that. Parents tried to teach their children responsibility and accountability to get them prepared for the real world. Nothing is free. So what you have to do, even at young ages, your job is to do whatever it is. Wash the dishes. Weekends, we washing the walls. Okay, thinking back, my job when I was young, and this was in the late 70s, early 80s, was to take care of my little sister and to keep the house clean, because my mom worked, 2-3 jobs. She was never home. But that was my job. I need to keep the house in order. No, I'm not the woman of the house, or at least not when my mama's home. But every child had a job or a responsibility. And it's important that children have those responsibilities, because if they don't, they going through life thinking that people owe them something for nothing. You got to work to eat. If you don't work, you don't eat. And young Flora's job as the youngest was to start the stove. We know back in the day it wasn't no such thing as no electric stove or gas stove. I mean, it probably was, but I'm sure it was something very, very primitive, okay, if there was a gas stove. But anyway, the baby started the stove. That was her job. I don't know if she should have been starting the stove, but it ended tragically one day. The poor baby burned to death. One day, as she was dousing the wood with kerosene from a 5-gallon can, it exploded in her hands. She died from the extensive burns. Like I said, I don't know if the baby should have been doing that, but you don't look. Look, in those days, everybody in the house worked. Everybody. The baby can barely hold the bottle. Well, the baby's job is to hold the bottle, okay? And if they can barely do it, one day they're going to do it right. The Southern economy had been built for centuries on the backs of black men and women, much like Warren and Florence Staples. Warren's father, William, had been a slave who defied bullets and bullwhips to live to be 103 years old and to see his emancipation, if not true freedom, in the Jim Crow South. Legend has it, Grandpappy had got into it with his master. The master got out of pocket with his mouth. Reckless mouth is what we call it. The master got out of pocket and William popped him in the face. Oh, there was strong repercussions for that because that was still during the time where the whites owned the blacks, owned young people, owned. We were possessions at one time. Like your PS5 is your possession. One day, Grandpa got to tangling with the white man. He struck his master and the mistress got to hollering to bring the bullwhip. William ran and was shot by one of the plantation security guards, but he somehow managed to stagger off into the woods and escape. Grandpa just flew away. He stayed away until he got so hungry that he had to go back to the old master. They took him back, fixed his wound, fed him, and nursed him back to health until he was well. But Grandpa said that the old master gave his wife hell for having him shot because he was a good worker and was not supposed to be shot up. People always said that if a ninja hit a white man, he was crazy. But Grandpa was respected because he had a good reputation. In those days, a man's reputation was his passport out of trouble. And that's why black people take it so serious about that snitching thing. It's not just about telling on somebody. It's a code, okay? It's a code that black men have, whether it's the dumbest code in the world, which sometimes it is. It's like, I'm not going to take a charge for you just because, I'm supposed to be not a... I'm not going to jail 100 years for you, okay? But black people take certain codes and traditions and culture very seriously because respect means everything to us, because sometimes that's all we have is our respect. The tale was passed down the Staples family line as a personal code for coping with racism, a guide for surviving in the world of the white man without groveling. If you don't respect yourself, then nobody's gonna give a good to who? Nah. Warren Staples tried to make a go of it as a farmer and landowner in the Forest Hill country near Winona at the turn of the 20th century. Roebuck was born in Winona, but by the time he was 2, Warren had sold the farm and moved the family to the more fertile Mississippi Delta region southwest of Drew. He rented about 150 acres on the northern edge of Dockery Plantation and grew corn, cotton, white potatoes, peaches, peanuts, tomatoes, watermelon, and raised cattle. Will Dockery had established his farm on 40 square miles not far from the Sunflower River in 1985, using a $1,000 inheritance from his grandmother as seed money. Dockery had a reputation for fairness, but many working class whites stayed away because the land was infested with malaria carrying mosquitoes. So blacks tended to make up the vast majority of the 400 tenant families employed at the farm's peak. When the cotton was sold after harvest, each family of the sharecroppers received a share of the proceeds minus the landowner's costs, which often exceeded the sharecropper's earnings from the crop. Little wonder that despite working his family and a team of mules nearly year-round in the fields, Warren Staples could never climb out of debt to his boss. Liston Sage, that's the boss. Baby, that's the American way. That's what happened. That's why right now interest is so high. Interest is super high. I ain't never seen nothing like this. You mean to tell me I got to buy a house that's worth let's say $150,000? That ain't true, but we just doing hypotheticals. I got to buy a house that's worth $150,000, and by the time I get finished paying for the interest, I've been paid $500,000 for this house just because of the interest. My credit good. I got a score of 777. Why? It's a scam. The more y'all understand what's happening here in America, the more you will stop believing in, quote, the American dream. Oh, the American dream used to work back in the day when houses was $30,000. You can buy a car for $6,000, a good car, mind you, and put your children to school. Okay? But nowadays, baby, ain't no American dream no more. They didn't made the cost of the American dream too high. Go in the damn grocery store, spend $86 on 10 items. As far as young Roebuck was concerned, Warren Staples' sharecropping life sure looked like just another version of William Staples' slavery. So we're already getting a picture of Pops Staples. Whatever it is that is this, I don't want to do this. I don't like this. This ain't good. Whereas I come from a time, I'm from Washington, D.C., where it was drilled in our heads. You graduate high school, you go to college, or you get a good government job. That was the overall goal. You get a good government job so you can buy your little piece of property and then get a pension when you retire. Girl, child, some of these companies, you'll be lucky if they even match what you put in your 401k or a percentage of what you put in your 401k. Okay. By the time Roebuck grew into a 140-pound teenager, he was fighting barefoot in local competitions at a plantation south of Drew in Ruleville. If nothing else, it brought out the entrepreneur in the young man who won 5 fights and went home with his pockets stuffed with cash thrown into the ring by proving gamblers. Far more than he could make in cotton fields. Oh, remember that movie Django, y'all? Remember when I think they called it buck fighting? But I respect the fact that he knew what he was good at, kicking ass. And he went yonder to go kick it and make money. Knowing that black people found other ways to make money. I'm sure white folks do and all cultures do, but we talking about the black folks right here. Knowing that we knew that there was a better way where we don't have to work so hard. That's what we do. We cook fish dinners. We have quarter parties. We sell fish dinners, okay? And we come up with ways. The candy lady, go to the Costco, buy you a shiz load of candy and then sell it to the children in the neighborhood. Turn it into penny candy. We are all hustlers. One thing I will say about today's young people, they've learned how to make their money in non-traditional ways. And I respect them for that. But I need you to stop being a wham-wham. I need y'all to fight for yourselves and understand where you come from. True solace was found in music, in the churches where black people could be themselves outside the glare of white scrutiny. In the fields where songs of faith and fortitude sustained the field hands against the sun's relentless glare, and in the home as parents and children unwound after supper. Each night, the Staples family gathered on the long front gallery of their home to sing the hymns that were part of the Methodist Sunday service at the rickety wooden church. Amazing Grace. Everybody will be happy over there. Still away home to Jesus, will the circle be unbroken? The dusk was filled with voices that carried across the fields, calling out to the other black families on the plantation. For African Americans on the plantation, music spoke to their better selves and comforted them with the possibility of a better life. If not in this world, then in the next one. The music in the Staples home was strictly spiritual. Blues was the music of sinners, boozers, and women chasers, and Roebuck was expressly forbidden to partake. With 14 children, Warren Staples couldn't be the gatekeeper for all of them 24 hours a day. Roebuck was a hard worker, but as the youngest son, he developed a fierce sense not only of competitiveness, never wanting to be outdone by his older siblings, but also of adventure, a desire to see if there was another life available to him beyond the one he and his family already knew. He ventured out whenever possible to explore all the pleasures his corner of Mississippi had to offer. There he encountered Charlie Patton, who lived on the lower plantation. He would set up outside the store on Sunday afternoon after most of the workers retired from the fields for the weekend. Patton, born around 1890, was in his prime when young Roebuck first saw him in the late 1920s. The singer was a mere 5'5", but he played with such ferocity and passion that he seemed much larger. Patton was a charismatic entertainer who pounded his feet, rapped on his guitar, and flipped it in the air while performing. He sang with a gravelly howl that made another young Dockery Farms blues upstart, Chester Burnett, later known as Howlin' Wolf, take notice. The notion of getting off the farm that had been bubbling inside Roebuck's head since he was 9 now took human dimension. Patton, Wolf, Willie Brown, Henry Sloan, Tommy Johnson, and other guitar-playing bluesmen who entered the plantation workers shouted that there was a better life out there, anywhere but here. Shout out to those of you who have made it this far. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and tune in tomorrow for part 2. Now, if you old school NayRob, you remember this. Remember that the same people you meet on the way up will always be the same people that you meet on the way down. Naysayers, lovers, love bugs. Have a good one.